hearing people tell me all the time that therapy does not work. It is a
Mm-hmm.
waste of time. It is a waste of money. And all therapists are just con artists. And then when I hear these stories like you're talking about, where it's, okay, well, what did you do in therapy? Well, I just kind of showed up and talked about, what's going on in my life. And the therapist just kind of nodded along and said, how does that make you feel? Then I kind of felt a little okay after, but, I did this for a little bit and then I just ended up leaving. And I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. Well, because that's not therapy.
Yeah.
That is going in and paying somebody to basically just listen to you talk. And I don't think that's a good use of your time. It's not a good use of their time. They're certainly not providing very good therapy, if any therapy at all.
Welcome to Silent No Longer, where your past is a chapter and not the whole book. I'm Mesha, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a safe, judgment-free space for anyone healing from toxic or abusive relationships. Through faith and healing, I found my way forward, and now my purpose is to help others do the same. My hope is that you'll be reminded that you are not alone, your past does not define you, and healing is possible. If you are ready to take the next step, you can learn more in my book, Behind Closed Doors, schedule a free clarity call with me, or explore neurotransformation therapy coaching, now available to support you in rewiring limited beliefs and creating lasting change. Welcome to Silent No Longer, and today I have Gregory here with us today, and Gregory is a clinical psychologist. Thank you for being here today, Gregory.
Of course, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got to become a psychologist?
Absolutely. I mean, how much time you got? But so as far as sort of my journey, I grew up in a small subdivision in the middle of a cornfield, and I was convinced that I was going to make video games. But I ended up having an experience that kind of changed my life with that. So in high school, my parents ended up getting divorced, and when that happened, two pieces kind of fell into place. So one, I ended up going to therapy myself. And at that time, the woman that I was working with, she's just phenomenal. Still is. She's still practicing, and she's just a fantastic therapist and really helped pull me out of a pretty dark place. And that was sort of coupled with, which I don't really often hear with high schools, but there was a psychology 101 course that was taught at my high school. And so when I took that, it was just so interesting to me. And I said to myself, this is what I wanted to do. So once I had those two events happen, I never really looked back. Ended up getting my master's, and I was a master's level counselor for a very long time. And I could not get the job that I wanted because of licensure issues, which I'm sure your audience is probably not all that interested in. So I will spare you the details. So I decided if I can't get the job that I wanted because of the credentials that I had, I needed to go back and get better credentials. So I ended up going back in 2017 for my PhD program and finished in 2023. So while I've only been a psychologist for a few years, I have been working in mental health as a licensed practitioner for many more beyond that. And I love this work. I think it's just so rewarding, and it's such a wonderful opportunity to meet with people and talk with people and hear their stories and help them work through challenges that I wouldn't have been able to experience in really any other profession.
Yeah, that's really good. Um, especially getting therapy is a really good option if you can find the right therapist. And I always tell people, shop around. If you don't like therapists, you don't have to stay with that person. Find one that works good for you. Um, but yeah, I think that's great because it's a really good field. I was a case manager in mental health for a couple of years, and it's definitely a hard job. Um,
As
but
I tip my hat to you, that case management
mhm.
is rough.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. It was, I don't really want to say it was just a company, but I felt like it was more of a numbers game than helping with case management, and that's what made it difficult for me because I wasn't able to help how I wanted to be able to help. Just have a you're expected to do a lot, but you're also have your hands tied on what you can do, and that's what makes it really difficult. It's definitely a bit mental health is definitely high on burnout, that's for sure. But it is definitely very, very rewarding. But yeah, so I'm glad that you enjoy it and you're, you know, sticking to it because I've seen physicians like come and go in that field. And it's a very hard job to do.
It really is, and, um, I mean, there have been periods in my life where I have been burned out. You mentioned case management. I am from the Chicago area, so when I first graduated with my master's, I was doing community mental health, and I could only do it for about 9 months, and really the thing that prompted me leaving was the agency was threatening to close because they couldn't pay their bills. They thankfully did not, but I just didn't wanna deal with the instability. But yeah, that was a very hard job. Exactly what you said. It's all about pushing the numbers. It's all about trying to bring the money in, and I get it. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
business, it's not like we're operating off, goodwill and, free ice cream or anything.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, being put into a machine like that, I mean, it really just can really crush a person's spirit. I see this a lot with colleagues, and it's a shame because there is a
Hmm.
national shortage of psychologists, there's a national shortage of other mental health care professionals, and we need it more than ever. And everyone says, "Oh yeah, mental health is great. Mental health is great." But then, they don't always value it with their time, their money, their energy, their platforms. So, I really appreciate what you do here in promoting it and talking about it because, we need that PR.
Yeah. When I was a case management, because of everything that I've been through in my life, I was able to connect with my clients. So that I think that was a lot of my burnout because I would see where they were in life and I felt everybody was just like, "Oh, well, they need medicine for this and this and this and this and this and this." These are all their diagnoses when being in that situation and having a lot of their same symptoms and they just throw pills at them and give them diagnoses that they're stuck with, you know, pretty much forever unless somebody goes in there and pretty much says, "No, I want to contest this," or whatever. And a lot of it is just what they're going through in life, you know? I mean, because sometimes I would sit there and listen to my clients talk to me about everything that they are going through in life and things that they have gone through in life, and it would just break my heart. And they would just they would just like pour their whole lives out to me. And then they'd be like, "Yeah, they want me to take this pill and this pill and this pill, but it's not helping." And myself going through all of this before and being, I'm just a case manager. I can advocate to, the provider and be like, "Hey, this is what they're going through. Maybe we need to do this area instead of doing this because this isn't helping them." But at the end of the day, I'm just a case manager. I can only, put my point of view in, but listening to my clients who have to come to me for everything so I can go to the provider about stuff, it was very frustrating because they don't understand why the medication isn't working, but the medication isn't going to work if they don't do the inside work. A
Yeah.
pill is not magic. And I know you being a psychologist, I don't wanna, like, say anything wrong, but I just feel today a lot of it is just pushing pills at people instead of trying to have them to do the inner work. And that's
Yeah.
why I always tell people, I'm like, you need to find a therapist who's actually going to listen and help you do that inner work instead of just like being connected with the provider who says they need to do this. And that's what I was running into working in the mental health clinic I was working in because everything was tied together. And the main focus was keep them on the medication. And it was frustrating to me because I was sitting here trying to help people and they were starting to do better and then they were discharging and then I was being punished for it. And I don't know, it's a very, very hard area to work in, especially when you have a lot of different type of values that you hold and trying to understand how it's all trying to work and it's just not making sense to you. And that's why I had to walk away because it was getting to the point where I was not only just burnt out, but like it was getting to me mentally because I didn't feel like I was doing people right. I felt like I was harming them more than anything. And then it was just causing me my physical health to go down because I felt like I was just fighting a battle all the time. But
Yeah.
not saying
It
all
it
clinics are like that, but it was just very hard.
it can feel like that though, right? Especially if we think about psychiatry and, there are certainly some really great psychiatrists out there.
Mhm.
And also, many
Yeah.
of them prioritize the medication, which I'm not anti-medication, but at least the research that I've seen have been taught in all of my years of schooling, the 1,000 years I've been in school. Um,
Mhm.
25% of people are going to get better with medication alone. 25% of people are going to get better with talk therapy alone, and 50% are going to get better with a combination of the two.
Yeah.
So that means that only 1 out of 4 people is just gonna feel better automatically with medication, and even then, I wonder about the research on that because it's exactly what you said, it's doing the inner work that helps people create the lasting change,
Yeah.
because people aren't I think a lot of times medicine tries to make people like computers, make the brain like almost like a broken limb, right? If I just do
Mhm.
XYZ for the broken limb, then it's going to be better and everything's going to be fine. If I just give these particular drugs to someone, then they're going to feel better and they don't need to do any of that silly talk therapy that doesn't really work and it's expensive and most therapists don't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Well, anecdotally at least, I've seen a lot of I've heard about a lot of psychiatrists who are supposed to know how to do talk therapy, basically sleeping through those classes
Oh
when they're in
goodness.
school. But, even if I take that out, there's so many wonderful changes that can happen with talk therapy. The issue is how many people are willing to invest in themselves, A,
Mhm.
and B, how many people are willing to actually do the work. And it's much more appealing for a system to just push a pill because it's going to be cheaper and easier than actually needing to hire skilled therapists to help do the inner work.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about that subject for a long time.
I'm sure we could.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I'm not saying, don't take medication by any means, but I always strongly push people make sure you're going and talking to somebody, but you have to apply the work. You can't just go in there and just have a little talk session to make yourself feel better. But then also you have to find the therapist who knows the type of work that you need to do and not just gonna let you sit there and talk. 'Cause
Yes.
I've noticed that too, a lot of people will be like, "Yeah, I'm in therapy," and it's like, "Okay, well, what did you talk about? Like, what type of things are you doing for homework?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I just go in there and talk about this." And I'm like, "Okay." But, I mean, that can help, but it's not gonna help you figure out long-lasting help to get you out of or help you through the problem that you're going there for. Does that make sense?
Okay, you open the door, so I'm walking through.
Okay, do
This
it.
is this is one of my biggest pet peeves being in this field. Hearing people tell me all the time that therapy does not work. It is a
Mhm.
waste of time, it is a waste of money, and all therapists are just con artists. And then when I hear these stories like you're talking about, where it's, okay, well, what did you do in therapy? Well, I just kind of showed up and talked about, what's going on in my life. And the therapist just kind of nodded along and said, how does that make you feel?
Mhm.
And, then I kind of felt a little okay after, but, I did this for a little bit and then I just ended up leaving. And I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. Well, because that's not therapy.
Yeah.
That is going in and paying somebody to basically just listen to you talk. And I don't think that's a good use of your time. It's not a good use of their time. They're certainly not providing very good therapy, if any therapy at all. But therapy is supposed to have goals that you're working towards. Therapy is meant to be time limited. So for some people, yeah, that means they need to be in therapy for 2, 3, 5, 10 years, depending on whatever it is that they're going through. For some people, I mean, as an example, I do a treatment called CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. It's 6 sessions plus or minus two. So for some people, they're done in 4 sessions and that's it. Then they move on and live their lives. But this sort of amorphous like blob that is
Mhm.
therapy that people talk about in the abstract and say it doesn't work, well, it's probably because you weren't actually attending good therapy and you don't really know the purpose of therapy. And also there's this, I think, lack of willingness to invest in ourselves.
Yeah.
For instance, I saw one video where a guy was talking about, or maybe it was just a quick post, I can't remember now, but either way, he was like, well, what's really a better value than therapy? Just invest in a fishing pole because it's way easier and cheaper to just go out and fish, and that's going to make you feel better. Well, tell that to the hundreds of veterans that I've worked with as part of my career who have PTSD and they just go fish and they avoid thinking about or dealing with their trauma. And so why are they still feeling bad? If all they
Yeah.
need to do is just go fish. There's more to it than just saying therapy is dumb and stupid and you need to invest in your hobbies. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
No.
It really irritates
Yeah.
me. Even on videos that I create, I see that comment all the time,
Mhm.
and I have to set a lot of people straight on it. And I just wish that wasn't the overall view of therapy, but here we are.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you put your sense in, you know, 'cause, that's important. Because a lot of people, they just have their one thought and that's it. Well, anyway. Oh, goodness. You wanna talk about how does self-awareness play a role in breaking patterns like overthinking or emotional reactivity?
Sure, I can absolutely talk about that. Excuse me. So I'm going to try to convince, in the spirit of setting the record straight, I'm going to try to convince everyone here, which I feel like is nearly impossible to do these days because of social media. But I'm going to try to convince everyone here that mindfulness is not just some woo woo vague thing that, people use as a way to sell courses and seminars and products. So, for those that maybe have been curious about mindfulness and want to, take a course or a seminar, I'm going to define it for you right here and save you the money so you can send me a check in the mail. It's paying attention on purpose to the present moment, non judgmentally. I'm going to say that again. It's paying attention on purpose to the present moment, non judgmentally. And by non judgmentally, I mean focusing on the facts of the situation as they are, not as I want them to be.
Mhm.
This sounds very simple, and it is simple in concept. It is not always simple in practice. A lot of times we tend to live our lives where we are on autopilot. I use the term autopilot. You'll see in some mindfulness literature, they say you're being mindless, having mindlessness, but that makes it sound like you're crazy, and I don't particularly care for that term. So, autopilot, I'm just acting on instinct, I'm just acting on habit. And there's nothing wrong with autopilot as a concept. As an example, I mean, I suspect first time you got behind the wheel of a car, probably pretty nervous, lots to think about. Where are the mirrors? Where's your seat? The steering wheel height, all this jazz. And now, when you get into the car, you probably just adjust things very quickly and just go. It's not a big deal anymore. We just tend to do things automatically. So that's helpful. It's not so helpful when we are falling into these habits where our mental health is not doing well, where we have thought patterns that push us into, I guess, less than ideal, suboptimal ways of living. You mentioned overthinking.
Mhm.
So I can't actually do anything about it unless I'm aware that it's happening in the first place. And that's why mindfulness becomes so powerful, because once I recognize that I am actually overthinking, then I can take the steps necessary to deal with that. So, and I can share some thoughts on, how to work through overthinking. But to start, when it comes to mindfulness, some people may say, well, how do I get better at that? I think it's always useful to start with the physical, and then we can broaden that out to the mental and the emotional. So, as an example, for those listening, I'm curious how your shirt may feel on your skin right now, assuming you're wearing a shirt as you're listening to this, which maybe you're not, and that's fine. Um, I suspect most people were not thinking about how their shirt felt on their skin until I said something. But once I said something, yeah, how does that feel? Is it soft? Is it scratchy? Is it smooth? Whatever the case may be. We can take that, practice that so it starts to become basically a habit for us and becomes, weirdly enough, our new autopilot. It's not just with the clothes on our skin. When you were brushing your teeth this morning, hopefully everyone brushed their teeth this morning. Uh, how many of us sat there with the feel, knowing, what am I trying to say? Identifying the weight of the toothbrush, the texture of the bristles on our teeth, on our gums, the flavor of the toothpaste, the motion that our hand was making as we were brushing our teeth. Probably very few in the audience. And that, again, it makes sense because we tend to be on autopilot. So I know when I brush my teeth, often I'm guilty of this. I'll brush my teeth and I'm thinking about what I got to do next, or maybe I'm queuing up the video to listen to while I'm, getting ready in the morning. And I'm not really fully present with what's happening. When I catch myself, though, I can gently kind of nudge myself back to the present moment. I don't need to say what an idiot I am and how stupid and dumb. Just gently nudge myself back to the present moment. And when I do that, I'm able to be more effective in the decisions that I make. So once I've been able to practice mindfulness and I recognize that I'm overthinking, well, what are some things that I could do? Okay, I'm doing that again. Maybe I need to talk to somebody about what's going on because I might have a lot on my plate. Maybe I need to journal a little bit. Maybe I need to take a day off. Maybe I need to go to formal therapy and actually bounce off someone, maybe some thought patterns, some beliefs that I have about myself that are contributing to the overthinking. Whatever the case may be, I can at least make a more informed decision rather than just feeling the stress and the pressure build and build and build and build and not really understanding why. So that's why I always start with my practice, with clients at my practice. The foundation is mindfulness, and that's going to be the thing to utilize to help you live that better life.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the emotional reactivity with overthinking. Can we put
Sure.
that in relationship wise?
Sure. So emotional reactivity is a an interesting topic, and we sort of need to set the groundwork a little bit, at least in terms of how I think about it, how experts in the field tend to think about it. Particularly, shout out to Dr. Marsha Linehan. Um, Emotion regulation is very helpful when it comes to, well, working through those difficult emotions. And of course, it sounds easy, but there's sort of two levels to it, right? When we're in the 0 to 7 range, that range is where the logical part of our brain stays online. It's easy, sometimes not as easy, but still we're capable of uh, basically working through those emotions with logic in tandem, even if those emotions are uncomfortable. It's when we hit that 8 to 10 range, that's really our threshold where that logical part of our brain starts to get very quiet. It never turns off completely, but it just gets very, very quiet. And the emotional part of our brain can then fill the space and it takes over. So if we're thinking about someone who's, well, overthinking and how that can tie into relationships, depending on the extent of the overthinking, they might find themselves in an 8 to 10 range. So, as an example, if I think about somebody who is maybe just feeling insecure about the relationship that they're in and romantic relationship. And so they are, overthinking, well, they didn't text me back, within the last 30 minutes and that's unlike them and I know we had that fight last night and so I'm not really sure, maybe I said something, maybe they're going to leave me, maybe they're back on the apps, maybe, and now that fear, that anxiety might be crossing over into the 8 to 10 range. There's no reasoning with somebody in that space, because not because they're you know unreasonable people, it's because the logic part of their brain has shut down or again gotten very quiet. So in order to have some kind of conversation with them, they have to be the ones to bring themselves down back to that 7 or lower range. Because even though a 7 is uncomfortable and definitely not a pleasant place to be in, it's still manageable with the logic part of our brain. So how do we do that? Well, there's a variety of techniques. Um, Probably the two fast ones that I can give for your audience. One is cooling the body down. So, for those out there that are familiar with the dive response, right, if we jump into a pool of cold water, it's probably going to be a little shocking. I mean, if it's not, I guess I'd be concerned about your ability to feel cold water, but um, it's probably going to be a bit shocking. You're not really thinking about what came before, what's coming after. You're probably not seeing red because you're just rooted to the moment. As we cool the body down, the temperature is going to go down, which means the body isn't going to be operating as hard. That's going to slow the mind down. You cool the body down, you cool the mind down. That's not necessarily going to solve the problem, but it's going to help turn that logic part of your brain back online. Now, I suspect most of you don't just have a pool of cold water lying around that you can jump in. So, how do we modify this? Well, could be that you go to the sink, splash some cold water on your face. Again, not ice cold. You don't need to freeze your face off, just cold enough to sort of snap you back. Maybe you make a cold compress, put that on your forehead, put that on the back of your neck, leave it there for about 30 seconds to a minute. And that's a long time. I mean, if we just had dead air on this show for about 30 seconds, we would feel that.
Yeah.
That would be very painful, right? And so it's actually a longer period of time than we think. And if we did that with the cold compress, we can utilize the dive response to help calm our emotions down. The second thing that you can do is deep breathing. Now, a lot of people tend to think, well, but I've tried that, it doesn't work. And I can tell you 99.9% of the time, and the 0.1%, I'm suspicious if the person is telling the truth. But 99.1% of the time, when I ask people to show me how they're doing deep breathing, they are almost always breathing into their chests. And of course, that's going to activate our fight or flight system, which makes sense, right? If we're exercising, for example, we're breathing short, shallow breaths into our chest. That's a good thing. We want to activate that system when we're in stressful environments, even if it's just lifting a weight. It's not helpful when we're trying to calm ourselves down. And if I'm breathing into my chest to calm myself down, well, I'm fighting myself because the body's trying to activate and get amped up when my intention is to relax. So you got to pull your breath down into your belly. My singers out there know what I'm talking about with diaphragmatic breathing, because when you do that, you're going to activate your rest and digest system. Now, if you're unsure if you're doing this right, you can put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And when you breathe in, which hand raises up? Because if it's your chest, you need to pull that air down into your stomach, fill it up like a balloon. You should see your hand on your belly go up with your stomach and sink back down with your stomach. There's all sorts of techniques out there, like box breathing, in for 5, out for 7. I really couldn't care less which one people prefer. The secret is that deep belly breathing, smooth inhale, smooth exhale. That's really all you need. Once you're down, once these techniques bring you down into that 0 to 7 range, that's where the logic can come back online. And so could be that you guys need a little bit of space so you can think about what you are going to say next. Could be that you're able to kind of critically think about your reaction, your emotional reaction, that overthinking that might be happening. You can't do any of that without the logical part of your brain. But when it is online, maybe that 7, 6, as you work through that, can come down to a 4, a 3. And, these are techniques that in-depth techniques that I work with clients on all the time, helping them figure out how to regulate their emotions so they're not always all on or all off. But that idea of emotional reactivity, it doesn't have to be something that is just forever going to run your life. In fact, there are things you can do to change it. And, if you want to live a healthier life, it's probably going to need to be something that you change because I suspect it's probably difficult to deal with to deal with a person like that. I know it is, um, uh, but it's probably difficult to deal with you if you find yourself kind of bouncing back and forth on that emotional spectrum from 0 to 10.
That's good. Thanks for explaining in quite detail on how to breathe and stuff because I always wondered what that means when people are like, you need to breathe properly. What do you mean? I'm putting air inside, I'm breathing in.
Yeah, well,
But
I mean, it's a failure on a lot of people's part, right? Because they do say just deep breathe in, just take a deep breath. And I say failure; it could just be ignorance, I mean, that happens too. But yeah, I mean, I think people do get very frustrated because they try it and it doesn't work. Well, that's because they haven't been taught properly.
mhm. And is that the same technique that you can use for being overwhelmed and anxious, or is there a different type of technique you would use for that?
Absolutely, you can use that anytime. I mean, that's what's so great about our air, our breath. It's cheap as free. You always have it with you, so you can do that whether you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, angry, depressed, right? You can use that to calm your body down, calm your mind down. So, I mean, again, there are various other things people can do, um, but I always start there with anyone. I just encourage them to do breath work and see how it works out for them. And it's not just like a one deep breath and that's it. I mean, we want this to become a habit. especially if we're chronically stressed and we find ourselves breathing shallowly into our chests a lot. In order for that to change, we need to actually change the pattern and the framework that we're using. So, to start, what does it look like to do deep breathing for 3 to 5 minutes, 3 times a day? And dealer's choice, it can be right when you wake up, after lunch, before bed, whatever, it doesn't matter. But having that set ritual, 3 to 5 minutes. I mean, we're looking at, what would that be, 9 to 15 minutes of deep breathing. Imagine what your life would look like if you did that for a week. Now think about 2 weeks. Now think about, as we record this, it's April 18th. So imagine where you'd be at May 18th if you did that for a whole month. Life would look a lot different. Or even thinking about ways to cue yourself to do such things. So what if you set an alarm every hour on the hour to remind you to do 1 to 2 minutes of deep breathing? How might your day look different? I suspect, while it wouldn't necessarily solve all of your problems, it would help you calm your mind down enough that you could deal with them more efficiently and more effectively. So, yes, if someone's saying just take a deep breath, well, actually the better response is to take several multiple times a day.
Okay, that's really good. Yeah, because some days I'm just like, ugh, I don't know what it is, but everything is frustrating me and agitates me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is wrong? And I'll just sit there and just take a moment so many times throughout the day and just relax and take a breath. Probably not the correct way, but take a breath.
But even if it's not the correct way, I mean, that's still being mindful, and that's what I encourage people to think about. It's progress, not perfection.
Mhm.
Step one is recognizing there's a problem, right? That's mindfulness. And for my people out there that are familiar with 12 step, right? Step one is recognizing there's a problem. There's 11 steps after that, but we can't do any of them until we do step one. So even if I know, hey, my mind is telling me to not breathe in, effectively, efficiently, calmly, I need to maybe slow down and take a deep breath. Already, that's getting yourself off autopilot. We can make the tweaks along the way about pulling the air into the belly. But again, we can't do any of that if someone is just going and saying, this isn't a problem. I just need to keep pushing.
Yeah. Now, is that the same thing as an exercise you would use for like your nervous system, or is that a whole other thing?
No, it's all connected, right? I mean, the nervous system, that part of us that amps up the body or calms the body down. I mean, those are the two systems that we tend to deal with regularly on a daily basis. So I guess, to be sciencey about it, the fight or flight system is called the sympathetic nervous system. Um, and that gets activated when we start to get anxious. That's our fight or flight response. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. When it's calm, when we can relax, when we can take our foot off the gas and maybe pump the brakes a bit. These systems are in constant battle with each other because they can't both be activated at the same time. And so if you find yourself, again, chronically stressed, anxious, nervous, upset, angry, your nervous system is probably defaulting to that fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system. No judgment. I mean, it happens to all of us at various points in our lives. What we can do, though, and I would argue is, I was going to say what we must do. I don't know if I want to say it like that, but what is going to be more effective for us is to try and pull that back, change that habit, so we're defaulting to the rest and digest, so that not everything is always a crisis.
Yeah, that's good. Because my whole life I was in fight and flight, and I didn't realize it until after, it was probably like a year after I got a divorce, and it's almost like I wanna say my nervous system reset, but I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but that's what I like to say. And instead of, like, not feeling any of my emotions and just going basically on autopilot, I was understanding and feeling things that I was feeling, and I was no longer on autopilot, and I'm like, "What is happening?" Like, still now I'll start feeling things, and I'm like, ugh. Sometimes I'll sit there, I'm like, "I liked it better when I wasn't feeling anything because I don't know what any of these feelings mean." I'm
Well,
trying to
but
figure
it's
that
very
out.
yeah, but it's very insightful, right? And so first off, to comment on what you said, yes, a nervous system reset is possible, especially as our circumstances change. When we're not in a stressful situation anymore, it might take some time to sort of reorient, but we can do that. And the second piece that you said, and now I'm having a brain fart here. Remind me what that second piece was.
How, like, I didn't feel anything, I was just basically on
Yes.
autopilot.
Thank you. Yes. So that is a classic case of uh, either emotional numbness or avoidance. And that tends to perpetuate, especially if we're talking about highly stressful, potentially traumatic situations. That piece keeps everyone stuck. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about it. It's too heavy. I can't deal with it. I mean, all of that's nonsense, right? Because humans are very resilient and we can, in fact, deal with the difficult stuff. It's just a matter of if we're willing to,
Mm,
sometimes if it's the right time to do it. So it makes sense to me that it was kind of strange and weird and probably very uncomfortable when you mentioned, yeah, all those emotions were coming up. You don't even know what to do with them because probably for a long time they were shoved down. A- And of course they're going to be shoved down when we're in survival mode. I mean, what's going to be more effective if we find ourselves in a room with a hungry grizzly bear? Is it going to be, well, let me figure out how my emotions are working for me, and maybe I can, talk to this bear and calm it down and so that, no, it's going to be get the heck out of there as fast as possible.
yeah.
And so that instinct is going to keep us alive. Same is true with highly stressful situations. The instinct is going to keep us alive. It's just when we're out of those situations, how can we sort of soothe that instinct so it doesn't continue to run our lives in ways that might be more detrimental at that point?
Mhm. Yeah, because now I get, um, because how I've started healing was whenever an emotion would come up, I would reflect, okay, I'm having this emotion. What's going on in my life? Where is this emotion coming from? When was the first time I've ever experienced emotion? And just kind of like figure out what's causing it. But sometimes just these emotions come out of nowhere and I'm just like, what is this? I've never had this before. How am I supposed to deal with something I've never had before? I feel like that's where I'm at in my healing right now. I'll just lay there and I'll be like, I don't know what to do. What is this? I don't
and
like this.
and yeah, well, it can be uncomfortable, and two things can be true at once. It can be uncomfortable, and something I encourage people to think about too. How exciting, right? This is a new experience that you get to work through, and even if it is uncomfortable, it's something that can be dealt with. It just takes patience, maybe some extra support, definitely a lot of courage. It can be done. There isn't anything that is really insurmountable in that way. Watch this get clipped out of context somewhere. But I guess what I mean by that, to clarify, is that a lot of times people tend to tell themselves, I can't. This will never get dealt with. When really we have the capabilities, we have the ability to do it. So instead of thinking that we can't do it, how might we reframe that to something that is going to help us move through it a bit more easily. Notice I didn't say easy, but easily.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because like you said at the beginning, it's definitely practice. And you have to be very self-aware and in tune on what's going on in your body to be able to understand what's the next step and to keep yourself calm. It definitely takes time and practice, but
Sure
yeah.
does.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the audience? Any last words?
No, I mean, I hope you all really enjoyed what we were talking about today. If you found some value in it and you want to learn more about me, my main practice, well, my only practice, is my private practice, Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute. I didn't want to make everyone type all that out, so it's royaloasispi.com. I am able to do therapy virtually in 43 states and some territories, thanks to an interstate compact called PsyPact. So if you're interested in getting some therapy, whether it's on emotion regulation, whether it's on mindfulness, or some of my other specialties that I mentioned, mood, trauma, PTSD, executive stress, if you're dealing with a lot of that overthinking in the workplace, feel free to reach out. You can also listen to my podcast, Meditations by Gregory Obert, where I talk with guests about mental health topics. I have guided meditations for free that people can listen to, as well as my YouTube channels. Excuse me, one where I put out a lot of mental health tips, and one where I play silly games with my wife, and we get scared together. And currently, we're getting scared together. We're playing Resident Evil 9, so you can watch us be a little silly and freak out when the zombies get us.
That's fun. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If today's episode spoke to your heart, be sure to follow me and follow Silent No Longer so you never miss a new episode filled with healing and hope. Please share this episode with someone who may need to hear it. You never know the impact it could have. If you're ready to take the next steps in your own healing, you can take my free quiz to see if you may be in a toxic relationship. Schedule a free clarity call with me or read my story in Behind Closed Doors. Thank you for listening to Silent No Longer. Your story isn't over and healing is possible.